In mid-February 1943, near Sidi Bouzid, Tunisia, an American M4A1 Sherman combat vehicle sat immobilized in the sand dunes. A hastily painted German cross barely concealed the U.S. Army star. Officers from the 501st Heavy Tank Battalion gathered around this captured curiosity, armed with notebooks and pens. This Sherman, the only American tank captured intact during the Battle of Sidi Bouzid, triggered a profound crisis of confidence among German engineers, a crisis that reverberated through their tank development efforts until the very end of the war. They were forced to rethink the fundamentals of armored warfare, not in terms of firepower or armor thickness, but in an area the Germans traditionally did not prioritize, automotive perfection that simply refused to fail. The tank bore the inscription War Daddy 2, and its serial number USA 30674641 indicated its origin from the Lima Locomotive Works. This particular tank belonged to G Company, 1st Tank Regiment, 1st Armored Division. A German reconnaissance crew drove the captured Sherman 350 kilometers across the rugged North African terrain to the port of Sfax, a journey that took 4.5 days. With every kilometer traveled, facts emerged that directly contradicted German preconceptions about American industry. The engine never overheated. The transmission performed flawlessly. The final drives demonstrated remarkable stability. German tank crews, accustomed to frequent breakdowns, even over short distances, watched with growing alarm as this enemy machine relentlessly continued its journey, seemingly impervious to terrain and conditions that would have long incapacitated their own equipment. The American combat vehicle, War Daddy 2, was prepared for shipment to Germany, where it was destined to play a crucial role in the intelligence activities of the German armed forces. After being loaded onto a freighter bound for Germany, the tank received strict orders from the Army Ordnance Office: deliver it intact to the Kummersdorf proving ground. German intelligence, which until then had operated only with fragmented data on American tank production, now had the opportunity to examine a real specimen of enemy technology. This encounter was expected to lend a tangibility to statistical data that dry figures on paper could not provide. The Sherman embodied large-scale production, developed on a scale unprecedented for Germany. It was built using automotive engineering principles that German industry had yet to master. As the ship traversed the Mediterranean Sea, heading north, Wehrmacht engineers developed test protocols designed to uncover the truth about their own limitations and the full potential of American military equipment. In the spring of 1943, War Daddy 2 arrived at the Kummersdorf proving ground in Brandenburg, Germany. After disembarking from its transport railcar, the tank was designated Zugfahrts 259 and assigned the German license plate WH058941. Test engineers meticulously stenciled armor thickness and angle measurements across the tank's entire surface, providing precise markings for the upcoming comprehensive evaluation program. The German Army's Kummersdorf proving ground, located just 25 kilometers south of Berlin, served as a pivotal center for testing both German and captured Allied equipment. Here, German engineers, with characteristic meticulousness, measured, tested and analyzed every aspect of the machinery, from track tension to transmission efficiency, documenting their findings in detailed technical reports. The Sherman was poised for the most rigorous examination German engineering could devise. German test engineers commenced the initial inspection, drawing in teams of experts from various technical domains. They documented every component and detail from numerous angles, meticulously measured all clearances using high-precision instruments, and carefully recorded the assembly methods, which appeared strikingly straightforward compared to German approaches. The transmission immediately drew close attention from powertrain specialists. While German tanks utilized spur gears, which demanded tight tolerances and regular maintenance, the Sherman was equipped with helical gears. These gears evenly distributed the load across multiple teeth simultaneously. This design feature, a standard in the American automotive industry since the 1930s, offered exceptional reliability with minimal precision requirements during manufacturing. German engineers considered helical gears excessively complex for mass production, given their industry's capabilities and the skill level of their workforce. The Americans, however, were successfully producing them in vast quantities. The initial testing phase comprised a series of standard automotive tests, meticulously designed for a comprehensive evaluation of each mechanical system under strict control. Engineers subjected War Daddy 2 to a relentless assault of obstacle courses, skillfully simulating the harsh realities of the battlefield. During these trials, fuel consumption was carefully measured, engine temperature closely monitored, and transmission behavior scrupulously recorded under various load levels and diverse terrain conditions. Each test was followed by a painstaking disassembly of components, aimed at thoroughly examining wear patterns and identifying signs of overstress, insufficient lubrication, or potential design flaws. The results decisively challenged the established principles of German tank doctrine, which traditionally accepted the inevitability of trade-offs between performance and reliability. The Sherman demonstrated commendable characteristics in every category, yet it surpassed all expectations in one critically important aspect, where German tanks systematically faltered operational endurance without the need for maintenance. A thorough investigation of the powertrain revealed fundamental differences in design philosophy, shedding light on the radical distinctions between American and German approaches. The Sherman tank's transmission, featuring 5 forward gears and 1 reverse, was notable for its synchronizers from 2nd to 5th gear. This design eliminated the need for drivers to perform complex double clutching during routine maneuvering. Consequently, the tank became almost as simple to operate as a conventional passenger car, significantly reducing the time and effort required for driver training. In contrast, German tank crews had to spend considerable time mastering more intricate double clutching techniques and precise throttle control to avoid damaging their tank's transmissions. The Sherman's design incorporated the principle that it would be operated by ordinary soldiers with basic driving skills, whereas German tanks demanded highly skilled crews. The Continental R975 radial engine installed in the Sherman demonstrated exceptional reliability across diverse operating conditions. Engineers emphasized that the engine maintained stable power output even at temperatures that led to overheating or performance degradation in German engines. The cooling system, despite its simplicity, proved surprisingly effective. The air filtration system successfully handled desert sandstorms without suffering from the frequent clogging that caused considerable trouble for German tanks in North Africa. Every detail of the design reflected a philosophy that prioritized practical functionality over theoretical optimization. On June 6th and 7th, 1943, the Hildesheim artillery range hosted a major armaments conference. Reich Minister Albert Speer personally arrived to preside over the event, which brought together key figures from the defense industry and high-ranking Wehrmacht officers. The program included trials, specifically a comparison of the hill-climbing capabilities of German tanks and captured Allied equipment. Alongside the latest German designs, such as the Panther D tank, which had just entered serial production, and the Ferdinand tank destroyer, embodying advanced German technology, the American Sherman, codenamed War Daddy II, also participated. Speer, as Germany's armaments production chief directly accountable to Hitler for the outcomes, sought to evaluate the potential of American industry and compare it with the achievements of German designers. The demonstration was set to shed light on questions whose answers neither Speer nor German tank designers wished to acknowledge. The Sherman confidently navigated the test climb, demonstrating smooth operation. Its 5-speed mechanical transmission, synchronized from second to fifth gear, ensured shifts without the slightest hesitation. Engine power remained stable throughout the ascent. The driver demonstrated confident control, highlighting the ease of operation that had become a hallmark of the Sherman. The Panther, equipped with a more powerful 700 horsepower Maybach HL230 engine, managed to replicate the Sherman's result, but with considerably greater strain and effort. The Ferdinand, distinguished by its massive 65-ton weight and complex electric transmission, stalled halfway up the incline. Speer observed the unsuccessful attempts of recovery teams to restart the vehicle, a highly embarrassing incident in the presence of numerous high-ranking officers and industrial elite. In his later memoirs, Albert Speer, a high-ranking official in Nazi Germany, recounted his impressions of the American Sherman tank during an inspection tour of Italy in October 1944. He particularly noted its cross-country mobility, observing that the Sherman was capable of traversing mountainous areas that German tank specialists considered impassable for armored vehicles. Speer attributed this to the Sherman's high power-to-weight ratio, which provided it with superior off-road capability compared to German tanks, a characteristic especially noted by the 26th Panzer Division. These observations from the Reich Minister of Armaments carried significant weight within Wehrmacht military circles. A public assessment of the Sherman appeared in the Das Reich newspaper on June 27, 1943. The article presented the tank as an outstanding achievement of American industry and highly praised it as a product of the North American steel manufacturing. Special attention was given to mass production and the American automotive industry's capacity to meet ambitious demands. The article also mentioned the gyro-stabilized gun as an innovative development, acknowledging the contribution of American engineers in this field. Despite the propagandistic nature of these statements, intended to conceal defeatist sentiments, anxiety grew within German engineering departments. American tanks proved not merely competitive but superior to their German counterparts in design characteristics, making them more suitable for sustained combat operations. Upon its return to Kummersdorf, intensive testing of the Sherman continued throughout the summer and fall of 1943. Engineers meticulously evaluated the tank's operational lifespan, subjecting it to comprehensive tests and pushing the machine to its utmost limits. They carefully documented that the Sherman's operational lifespan reached up to 2,000 kilometers before requiring major maintenance, a figure approximately 4 times greater than that of early Panther models under actual combat conditions. Special attention was paid to the efficiency of the Sherman's transmission, which surpassed all German counterparts. Power losses within its transmission were significantly lower than in comparable German systems. Researchers noted the synchronized manual transmission, which provided smooth and effortless gear changes, requiring neither double clutching nor precise engine RPM adjustment, both of which were necessary in German tanks. The final drives proved to be a true revelation, disproving established German engineering notions. German Panther tanks utilized final drives inherited from the Tiger design, which proved vulnerable to failure under load. The design employed spur gears in housings that could not withstand the stresses generated by a 45-ton vehicle. German mechanics operating in North Africa and on the Eastern Front regularly reported final drive failures, often leading to Panthers being abandoned after relatively short operational distances, sometimes less than 100 kilometers. The Sherman's final drives, designed using the same helical gearing principles as its transmission, demonstrated exceptional reliability. They rarely failed, even under intense combat conditions that quickly disabled German components. Tank restoration projects decades later revealed Sherman final drives that required no mechanical restoration after many years of storage, attesting to a significant margin of strength that exceeded immediate operational demands. By the end of 1943, the Kummersdorf Proving Ground possessed an extensive body of information, sufficient for compiling detailed internal reports that were circulated among Wehrmacht technical departments. These documents, addressed to senior officers and representatives of the Armaments Ministry, presented a rather grim assessment of comparative capabilities. The Sherman, it turned out, embodied the maturity of the American automotive industry, a level Germany, despite its theoretical knowledge and scientific developments, could not achieve. American mass production methods, with their tolerances that German precision manufacturing would consider unacceptable negligence, allowed for the creation of more reliable equipment, better adapted to real operating conditions. Parts interchangeability significantly simplified field repairs, requiring only a basic set of tools and minimal specialized training. While German equipment often required factory precision and specialized tools for many repair operations, the Sherman's overall design philosophy focused on maintaining operational readiness rather than achieving theoretical peak performance. The latter, while certainly impressive in technical specifications, proved difficult to achieve and unsustainable under combat conditions. Internal German expert reports, meticulously documented by engineers, revealed undeniable advantages of American industry that extended far beyond typical production figures. The American automotive industry, in particular, was a vivid reflection of decades of accumulated experience in civilian manufacturing, a level of development that Germany never achieved on a comparable scale. In the pre-war United States, car ownership was widespread, becoming an everyday phenomenon among citizens of all economic strata. In Germany, conversely, civilian automotive experience was very limited, and automobiles remained a luxury item, accessible only to the wealthy and the party elite. The Volkswagen program, pompously promised to German workers since 1934, managed to deliver fewer than 1,000 civilian vehicles by 1939. This colossal difference in automotive industry maturity was directly reflected in tank design philosophy. American designers created tanks whose maintenance was manageable by mechanics with civilian automotive training, utilizing their existing skills. German tanks, conversely, demanded specialized training and constant meticulous attention from personnel with years of dedicated military technical education. As field reports accumulated in late 1943 and early 1944, the stark comparison with German tank reliability simply became impossible to ignore. Despite its power and advanced design, the German Panther tank was shrouded in a host of operational limitations that could negate all its combat advantages. Crews received the strictest instructions regarding driving modes, aimed at minimizing the risk of breakdowns. Specifically, drivers were instructed to avoid frequent gear changes, as this had a destructive impact on the tank's transmission. Third gear was particularly vulnerable, and field manuals strongly advised its use only in the most extreme, unavoidable circumstances. Furthermore, Panthers faced severe limitations when reversing. Attempting to turn while moving backward almost guaranteed a transmission breakdown. Pivot turns were only possible on level ground, where both tracks encountered equal resistance. This significantly hampered the tank's tactical flexibility on the battlefield, severely limiting its maneuverability. It is also worth noting that even minor ingress of foreign objects into the Panther's running gear could lead to the jamming of the drive sprocket. Rectifying such a malfunction required many hours of maintenance, which disabled the tank at the most inopportune moment. Notably, all these shortcomings manifested despite the fact that Panthers were produced in specialized tank factories, employing highly skilled specialists and utilizing the best materials available to wartime Germany. This demonstrates that even with the most advanced technologies and skilled personnel, design miscalculations and inherent flaws can negate all efforts to create a perfect combat vehicle. In contrast, the Sherman was the product of engineers from automotive giants General Motors, Ford, and Chrysler, who applied decades-honed principles of civilian mass production. The tank's design maximized the use of commercial automotive components, which allowed for the utilization of existing supply chains and manufacturing expertise. Transmissions were supplied by multiple manufacturers, including Caterpillar Tractor, Buick, and Ford Motor Company, all adhering to unified standards and ensuring full interchangeability of parts that could be freely combined without additional fitting. This standardization, familiar to the American automotive industry, remained largely theoretical in German tank construction, where each manufacturer introduced minor variations that hindered true component interchangeability. Throughout 1943 and 1944, captured Sherman tanks, seized from British units in Italy, and Soviet forces on the Eastern Front continued to arrive at Kummersdorf. Each captured vehicle underwent rigorous testing according to a standardized procedure, which allowed for the creation of an extensive database detailing the capabilities of American tanks of various modifications and production years. The British, for their part, modernized some Shermans by installing a 17-pounder anti-tank gun, thus creating the Firefly variant, which addressed the Sherman's primary drawback, insufficient firepower. German engineers meticulously studied these modified tanks, noting that the large diameter of the Sherman's turret ring allowed for the installation of a significantly more powerful weapon with minimal modifications. The Firefly demonstrated the upgrade potential inherent in the original design, a factor German engineers had not accounted for when designing their own vehicles. The Panther, hastily rushed into production to counter Soviet T-34 tanks, lacked the capacity for substantial armament upgrades without a complete redesign of its turret and hull. In the United States, the Armored Vehicle Testing Program was significantly expanded to replicate the harsh conditions of real combat. Engineers subjected Sherman tanks to grueling trials over hundreds of miles of difficult terrain, meticulously recording every breakdown, maintenance requirement, and component failure. The data obtained was then compared with reports from units operating German Panthers and Tigers on the Eastern and Italian fronts. The results of this comparison clearly illustrated the difference in vehicle reliability. The operational readiness of Panthers averaged no more than 40% for most of 1943, with some units reporting catastrophically low figures, reaching 20–25%. In isolated Panther battalions, there were periods when less than 1/5 of the tanks were capable of performing combat missions. Concurrently, Shermans demonstrated significantly higher operational readiness across all theaters of the war. German field reports detailed the Panthers' reliability issues. For instance, in July 1943, during Operation Citadel near Kursk, Panther operational readiness was only 16%, with breakdowns disabling more tanks than actions by Soviet forces. By December 1943, this figure had only improved to 37%, and reports for February 1944 showed 37% combat readiness. By April 1944, readiness reached 50%, and in May 1944 it was 78%. These figures reflected the percentage of Panthers that could participate in combat on any given day, while the rest were inoperable, awaiting spare parts or undergoing repairs. Despite gradual improvements as design flaws were addressed, even the best Panther readiness figures never matched those demonstrated by Shermans from the outset of their production. By December 1943, it was abundantly clear, even to the most objective analyst studying the statistical data, that American equipment held a distinct advantage. The Sherman tanks and diesel engine exhibited an impressive lifespan exceeding 3,000 kilometers, provided proper maintenance was performed. In contrast, the engine of the German Panther barely managed 1,000 kilometers, despite all efforts to rectify design flaws that emerged during early operations. German reports from March 1944 proudly announced an increase in Panther engine life to 701,000 kilometers, presenting it as a significant achievement. However, even after these upgrades, Panther engines could only cover a third of the distance achievable by a diesel Sherman. The Sherman's transmission was robust and required minimal complex maintenance between major overhauls. Thanks to synchronized gears, the likelihood of breakdowns due to crew error was minimized. In stark contrast, the Panther's transmission demanded constant attention and frequent repairs. Failures of the third gear were so common that German tank crews developed the habit of shifting directly from second to fourth gear to avoid using the problematic third. The Sherman's final drives demonstrated reliable operation even under the harshest conditions, while analogous components in the Panther failed after just 100–200 kilometers of operation. confirming the results of tests conducted at Kummersdorf, operational data arrived directly from the battlefields from German units employing captured Shermans. Wehrmacht mechanized units, experiencing a severe shortage of reliable equipment amidst the progressive wear and tear of their own armored vehicles, readily pressed any salvaged American tanks into service. Notably, unlike Soviet T-34s, which underwent significant modernization before use, Shermans were deployed by German forces in their original state. The absence of a need for modifications was attributed to their impeccable design and the lack of any fundamental flaws requiring rectification. German tank crews, whose own vehicles suffered from numerous mechanical malfunctions, were astonished by the Sherman's reliability, as evidenced by numerous letters and reports. Tank regiment dispatches emphasized that Sherman crews could fully concentrate on tactical objectives and enhancing combat effectiveness, while Panther and Tiger crews constantly worried about the risk of breakdowns en route to the battlefield, or feared that a mechanical failure would disable them before completing their mission. During Operation Nordwind in January 1945, the 10th SS Panzer Division captured 12 M4A3 Sherman tanks in the Herlisheim area. The American Sherman tanks that fell into German hands belonged to the US 43rd Tank Battalion. These combat vehicles were captured in fully operational condition after their crews abandoned them in haste during the German offensive. The 12 Shermans were incorporated into the 13th Company of the 10th SS Panzer Regiment and actively participated in battles until the very end of the war. These captured tanks were used as reconnaissance vehicles and mobile reserves, demanding constant movement without maintenance delays and flawless mechanical operation. German commanders became convinced of what the Kummersdorf tests had proven years earlier. American tanks could be relied upon for their dependability and functionality when it mattered most. It was this reliability, rather than firepower or armor protection, that became the decisive factor in tactical value during the final months of the war. A combat-ready Sherman with a working gun was far more useful than a Panther with its superior firepower that had broken down 20 kilometers from the front line. In January 1944, as Wehrmacht forces retreated on multiple fronts, testing programs were expanded and more captured equipment flowed into Kummersdorf for study and utilization. At Kummersdorf, German engineers meticulously analyzed the American M4A1 tank, equipped with a Continental R975 radial engine. They scrupulously recorded its characteristics, aiming to compare them with other Sherman modifications. Special attention was paid to the M4A2, powered by two General Motors 6246 diesel engines. Engineers noted its outstanding fuel efficiency and other operational advantages. The M4A3, with its Ford Gava 8 gasoline engine, which American tankers unanimously recognized as the best power plant for the Sherman, also received considerable scrutiny. Despite the diversity of engines, all Sherman variants exhibited one common trait: exceptional chassis reliability. This was rooted in sound engineering solutions and bolstered by high-quality manufacturing processes. German specialists were struck by the consistent performance across different modifications, as they were accustomed to significant variations in product quality from different factories, even for nominally identical machines. The diesel M4A2 left an indelible impression on the German engineers who studied it at Kummersdorf. Soviet forces received 4,102 such tanks through the Lend-Lease program, and a significant number of them fell into German hands during retreats on the Eastern Front. The twin GM6046 diesel engine provided the Sherman with performance comparable to gasoline versions, while consuming significantly less fuel. This was a critically important advantage amidst dwindling fuel supplies. German designers also experimented with diesel tank engines, but were forced to abandon these developments due to production difficulties and the complexity of the fuel injection systems. American industry, in contrast, successfully produced diesel Shermans alongside gasoline versions without disrupting production schedules. This fact testified to a manufacturing flexibility and technological sophistication that German industry was unable to achieve under wartime conditions. In March 1944, General of Panzer Troops Heinz Guderian presented reports indicating noticeable progress in improving the Panther's reliability. According to official statements, acceptable standards in this regard had been achieved by early 1944. Engine life was reportedly increased to 700 to 1,000 km, and problems with final drives were largely eliminated thanks to design modifications and improved manufacturing processes. This improvement, presented in German military dispatches as a major success, in fact only allowed the Panther to reach a level of reliability that the Sherman had demonstrated from the very beginning of its production in 1942. The German army rejoiced at achieving standards that American tanks had surpassed at their inception, a telling testament to the lagging state of German armored vehicles. This comparison became increasingly painful amidst the problems faced by German tank production due to intensifying resource shortages and Allied strategic bombing. Allied bombing campaigns with increasing effectiveness struck key links in the Panther and Tiger production chains. For example, the Maybach engine plant in Friedrichshafen was severely damaged by a raid by RAF Bomber Command on the night of April 28, 1944. Historical chronicles at the Imperial War Museum record one of the most devastating air attacks on the German tank industry throughout the war. In this massive raid carried out in 1944, 322 aircraft participated. The attack targeted not only tank factories, but also the neighboring Zeev plant, which produced gearboxes. As a result of these bombings, the production of tank engines and transmissions was paralyzed for a full 6 months. The resumption of production in November 1944 was marked by a sharp decline in quality standards. Forced labor, increasingly utilized in German tank factories due to German workers being drafted into the army, led to acts of sabotage. Workers deliberately clogged oil channels with cigarette filters, incorrectly installed gaskets, and assembled components with improper clearances. These problems never arose in Sherman production, which was securely protected in American factories, far removed from the combat zone. American workers, motivated by fair wages and working conditions, ensured high product quality. Thus, the fundamental difference between American and German tank production lay not so much in engineering developments as in industrial potential and core design principles. German designers, possessing profound theoretical knowledge and extensive scientific experience, were in no way inferior to their American counterparts in their understanding of automotive technologies. However, when creating tanks, they did not always consistently apply this knowledge, prioritizing other aspects that they deemed more important. German tanks emphasized outstanding performance characteristics, leading to impressive technical specifications, but negatively impacting reliability in real combat conditions. For instance, the Panther's powerful 75mm KWK-42 gun and strengthened frontal armor were achieved at the expense of an overloaded transmission, which frequently failed under the 45-ton vehicle's weight. In turn, the formidable Tiger required complex technical maintenance and frequent repairs by highly skilled specialists. Such compromises might have been justifiable if German industry had been able to produce a sufficient number of tanks and spare parts to keep them combat ready. Unfortunately, this did not happen, especially amidst increasing Allied bombing and severe shortages of raw materials. American engineers with vast experience in mass automotive production created tanks that could be produced in tens of thousands and maintained by mechanics with basic training, utilizing skills acquired in civilian life. The Sherman's design extensively utilized components and assemblies proven in civilian vehicles, and engineering solutions were directly borrowed from the automotive industry. The tank's electrical system included an auxiliary generator, allowing the turret to traverse even with the main engine off. This feature, which German engineers considered superfluous, proved exceptionally important in combat conditions. German tankers could only dream of such convenience, especially when faced with the inability to traverse a turret on a slope due to a stalled engine. Such amenities were not reflected in German technical requirements, as designers prioritized armor thickness and firepower. By spring 1944, Wehrmacht units fighting on all fronts reported an increase in breakdowns, attributed to declining production quality and a severe shortage of spare parts. Panthers had to be transported by rail even for short distances over 100 kilometers, as their final drives could not withstand long marches. Strict directives within the German army limited the movements of Panther tanks. This was done to preserve them for actual battles, rather than losing them to mechanical failures during transit. Even the Berge Panther recovery vehicle, built on the Panther chassis to retrieve damaged tanks, suffered from the same reliability problems as the very tanks it was designed to evacuate. German commanders faced a bitter truth: breakdowns incapacitated more tanks than enemy fire. In some units, up to 70% of the tank losses were due to technical problems, not combat damage. Meanwhile, Sherman production continued at an unprecedented rate that German industry could not match. American factories produced 49,124 Sherman tanks during the war, more than all German tank factories combined, producing all types of tanks. British Commonwealth forces received thousands of these machines through the Lend-Lease program. The Soviet Union received over 4,000 diesel versions. Chinese forces in Burma successfully used Shermans against Japanese armor, which was significantly inferior technologically to both American and German designs. The military theaters where Shermans performed combat missions became living proof of the results of the Kummersdorf tests. With proper maintenance, these tanks demonstrated astonishing resilience, continuing to function even under conditions that proved devastating for German equipment. German tankers who had the opportunity to capture and use Shermans consistently noted their outstanding running characteristics in their reports and post-war memoirs. According to reports from the Eastern Front, German specialists found even the complex Chrysler A57 engine, consisting of 5 separate cylinder blocks, surprisingly easy to repair, especially when compared to German tank engines, which required deep knowledge and specialized equipment. The Ford GAA V8 engine, praised by Allied crews for its exceptional reliability and power, pleasantly surprised German mechanics who were accustomed to capricious Maybach engines requiring constant adjustments of valves, ignition, and carburetor. Even the twin General Motors diesel engine, which the American Army had rejected in favor of gasoline counterparts, was deemed more reliable and was supplied via Lend-Lease, significantly outperforming any diesel engine produced in Germany for tanks. The Sherman's impressive safety margin proved to be an unexpected virtue, not overlooked by German specialists. Originally designed for the 30-ton M4 with a 400 horsepower engine, key transmission and final drive components required no significant redesign even when installed on the 42-ton M4A3E2 jumbo assault tank, whose armor was substantially reinforced. Moreover, the same components, functioning flawlessly on the standard Sherman, effortlessly handled the transmission of 650 horsepower from experimental engines without requiring strengthening or replacement. German engineers regarded such an approach as impractical extravagance, excessive power that led to increased production costs and an irrational use of scarce resources without immediate, visible benefits. American designers, in contrast, understood that the built-in safety margin provided potential for future upgrades and enhanced combat reliability, which ultimately justified the additional costs over the vehicle's life cycle. By the summer of 1944, when Allied forces landed in Normandy, German tank crews realized that the technical disadvantage extended far beyond the characteristics of individual combat vehicles. The might of American artillery, devastating air attacks from above, and colossal superiority in logistical support collectively overwhelmed the German army, irrespective of tactical skill and the quality of their tanks. The reliability of Shermans allowed American armored units to conduct continuous combat operations, an impossible task for German panzer divisions. American tank battalions could launch offensives, sustain combat operations, pursue retreating enemies, and immediately prepare for new tasks without spending time on lengthy technical maintenance. At the same time, German panzer divisions had to conserve their few operational machines, understanding that every movement brought them closer to a breakdown. This difference in operational readiness decided the outcome of battles. One side could constantly increase offensive pressure, while the other was forced to sparingly use its limited resources. The use of captured Sherman tanks by the German armed forces became undeniable evidence of the American automotive industry's technical triumph in the eyes of German strategists. During preparations for the Ardennes offensive in December 1944, the 150th Panzer Brigade, formed for diversionary operations behind enemy lines, sought to acquire captured American tanks to mask their intentions. The choice of Shermans was dictated by their high reliability, yet the brigade only managed to obtain 2 units, of which only 1 was operational. Despite this, even the functional Sherman could not participate in combat operations due to a transportation collapse that thwarted the infiltration operation into enemy positions. In an operation requiring flawless equipment performance far from supply lines, only American vehicles could provide acceptable chances of success. German tanks, even in ideal condition, did not guarantee the necessary durability under such circumstances. The final acknowledgement of the failure of German tank design came at a meeting of the Tank Commission on January 23, 1945, where a report was presented detailing mass failures of final drives on all types of German tanks. The devastating conclusions contained in the documents shattered the reputation of German armor. By the start of the Eastern Offensive in 1945, the tank fleet was plagued by an epidemic of breakdowns. 500 Panzerfürsts, 370 Panthers, and about 100 Tigers were sidelined due to final drive malfunctions. Additionally, approximately 200 Hetzer self-propelled guns built on the Czech 38-ton chassis suffered the same fate. Lieutenant General Wolfgang Tromale, Chief of Staff to the Inspector General of Armored Troops under Guderian, did not mince words when describing the operational consequences of these problems. Under these circumstances, effective deployment of tanks became impossible. Troops lost faith in their vehicles and at times abandoned perfectly functional equipment for fear of a final drive breakdown and subsequent capture by the enemy. German tanks, designed to inspire terror with their impressive specifications, failed to meet the most basic requirement for armored vehicles: sufficient mechanical reliability to reach the battlefield and accomplish their missions. The Kummersdorf testing center, anticipating the imminent fall of Berlin to Soviet forces, began preparing for evacuation in early 1945. In the final days of the Third Reich, as Soviet forces relentlessly approached Berlin, an atmosphere of panic prevailed at the German Kummersdorf testing center. Engineers hastily gathered test results and sent important documents westward, aiming to preserve valuable technical information for further analysis after the war. At the same time, at least 2 captured American Sherman tanks were hastily incorporated into combat units, desperately trying to stem the Soviet advance on the approaches to Berlin. These captured vehicles, fighting alongside German armor, participated in the final, fierce battles, providing a unique opportunity to compare their effectiveness in real combat conditions. The American Shermans continued to fight until they were destroyed by enemy fire or abandoned due to lack of fuel. German tanks, including the formidable Panthers and the few Tigers, broke down with astonishing frequency, causing bewilderment even among experienced crews accustomed to technical problems. The story of War Daddy 2 and dozens of other Shermans subjected to testing at Kummersdorf is a vivid example of the industrial paradox of World War II. German engineers, working within a system where theoretical perfection was valued above practical suitability, created tanks that looked impressive on paper but proved unreliable and ineffective in real-world operation. American engineers, drawing on years of automotive engineering experience, adapted their knowledge to create military equipment. Their tanks might not have boasted exceptional technical sophistication in some aspects, but they demonstrated outstanding reliability, especially under harsh conditions that proved devastating for German equipment. In the realities of armored warfare, as in most military operations, a reliable weapon, capable of performing its tasks when needed, holds an undeniable advantage over theoretically more advanced models that cannot reach the battlefield or break down at the most critical moment. Post-war investigations conducted by American and British intelligence services confirmed the findings of the German tests at Kummersdorf. A detailed analysis of destroyed German tanks showed that mechanical failures were as frequent a cause of losses as direct hits from enemy fire. Final drives failed under overload, transmissions seized due to insufficient lubrication or crew error, and engines burned out from overheating or lack of oil. The German passion for creating vehicles with outstanding characteristics and the pursuit of absolute superiority played a cruel trick on them, obscuring the critical importance of reliability and ease of maintenance. As a result, they created tanks that required highly skilled specialists for maintenance and could not be repaired by ordinary conscript mechanics without extensive training. These tanks were equipped with complex engines that demanded constant attention from experienced technicians and were supported by a cumbersome logistical system that could not withstand the burden of supplying dispersed units with a vast number of unique parts. The rigorous tests conducted at Kummersdorf significantly influenced German tank engineers who worked on developing tanks for the West German Bundeswehr in the post-war period. When the Federal Republic of Germany began developing the Leopard 1 main battle tank in the 1950s, designers deliberately prioritized reliability and ease of maintenance over maximum tactical and technical specifications. They closely studied American automotive engineering approaches and intentionally applied them to military vehicle design. As a result, the Leopard 1 tank incorporated many design solutions that contributed to the Sherman's success: a robust drivetrain with ample safety margins, simplified maintenance requiring minimal specialized tools, standardized components allowing for quick field repairs, and the potential for future upgrades without needing a complete redesign. The Leopard 1 became one of the most successful tank projects of the Cold War, serving in many countries and produced for decades. The captured Shermans at Kummersdorf, including War Daddy 2, with its name preserved on its hull, represented more than just examples of enemy equipment intended for technical analysis. They became a source of valuable lessons and inspiration for a new generation of German tank designers. The triumph of American tank design in World War II visibly confirmed that in real warfare, practical experience and industrial maturity matter far more than a blind pursuit of theoretical innovation. German engineers, captivated by the idea of technological superiority, naively believed that advanced tank characteristics could compensate for a lack of resources and numerical enemy superiority. History proved the fallacy of this approach. In turn, American designers, drawing on the bitter experience of war, prioritized reliability and ease of maintenance. They understood that logistics and constant combat readiness were the keys to victory in modern warfare, and they were proven right. The Sherman's superiority in reliability over German tanks significantly influenced not only tank battle tactics, but also the overall understanding of the role of military-industrial potential in modern conflict. Germany, starting World War II with technological superiority in several armaments and possessing advanced scientific knowledge, faced a serious problem. It lacked the industrial might and production flexibility to sustain this superiority through the mass production required to wage war on multiple fronts simultaneously. The entry of the United States into the global conflict was marked by the deployment of weaponry that, while perhaps not dazzling with cutting-edge technology, was underpinned by colossal production capabilities. This allowed not only for the production of equipment on a massive scale, but also for the continuous improvement of its characteristics, reliability and effectiveness, based on experience gained in real combat conditions. The design and mass production of the Sherman tank became a prime example of this industrial approach. This approach proved significantly more advantageous compared to the German pursuit of technological perfection, which, however, translated into small batch production. American industry managed to produce almost as many Sherman tanks as Germany produced tanks of all types combined. Concurrently, the US maintained colossal production of various other armaments, supported its allies through Lend-Lease, and, significantly, preserved the highest standard of living among all warring nations. These economic achievements, which were utterly unattainable for Germany, even before the start of massive strategic bombing campaigns, predetermined the outcome of the war with the same certainty as the results of major battles. The mathematics of war, when viewed impartially, were simple and relentless. A Sherman tank with a 75mm gun, which reliably reached the battlefield and effectively performed its duties, was immeasurably more valuable than a Panther tank with its superior gun, which broke down en route to the front line or required 3 days of maintenance for every day of operation. The combat readiness of tank units directly impacted their capabilities. For instance, a tank battalion with 80% of its vehicles operational could successfully accomplish missions unattainable for a unit where only 40% of its equipment was combat ready. Tank reliability was not merely a matter of convenience, but a critical factor in operational effectiveness, determining whether armored forces could fulfill their assigned tasks. Throughout World War II, German armor systematically failed in this crucial aspect. Meanwhile, American tanks demonstrated a much higher level of reliability. By mid-1943, tests conducted at Kummersdorf definitively confirmed this advantage of American equipment. Despite this, the German command continued to deploy Panther and Tiger tanks, which, despite their imposing appearance and impressive specifications, lacked reliability in critical situations. Ultimately, the Sherman tank made a decisive contribution to victory in World War II, not through superiority in firepower or armor protection, but thanks to the industrial potential that ensured its mechanical reliability, consistent availability, and ease of maintenance. By mid-1943, German engineers at Kummersdorf, after conducting comprehensive tests, came to realize the technological superiority of American equipment. They meticulously compiled reports, documenting their observations and conclusions, repeatedly verifying the evidence with scientific precision. Ultimately, they arrived at a correct conclusion regarding the advantages of the American approach to military equipment design and production. However, recognizing a problem and solving it are entirely different challenges, requiring distinct approaches and resources. German industry, under immense pressure from waging war on multiple fronts against superior enemy forces, lacked the ability to rapidly retool production and implement principles of reliability. Meanwhile, American industry, thanks to decades of competition in the civilian market, had successfully integrated the concept of reliability into automotive manufacturing and easily extended these established principles to military production, achieving impressive results. The Sherman tank named War Daddy II, captured in Tunisia and subjected to comprehensive testing at Kummersdorf, vividly demonstrated its success story through high mechanical reliability and consistent performance. Every kilometer it traveled without breakdown served as compelling evidence that German tank design had taken the wrong path, prioritizing technical specifications at the expense of reliability. Every test demonstrating the superiority of American engineering confirmed that industrial maturity and practical manufacturing experience held greater importance than theoretical calculations. Every comparison of the Sherman's reliability with German tanks proved that American engineers had successfully solved problems whose existence their German counterparts had not even suspected. The Sherman tank itself was one of 49,000 produced, yet it became a symbol of Germany's crushing defeat in the industrial race. It was living proof that Germany had already lost the industrial war despite ongoing combat. American manufacturing power proved insurmountable, regardless of German technical sophistication or tactical prowess.